You're listening to 66.6 FM. Radio TOVH. The Flush.
Oh yeah. You're listening to another thrilling episode of the Toilet Hell Radio Show. It's me, Joe Thrashenkill, joined today for the October Spooktacular. I've got my right-hand man. You know him, you love him. He is the golden boy, the internet sweetheart. Sometimes we call him the 365 Days of Horror, but most of the time we call him Jordan. Jordan, how are you?
I am good. I am just about ready to put a jack-o'-lantern on my head to record this show properly and be in the spooktacular spirit.
I mean, I've been waking up every day. I set my alarm to the Monster Mash. And, you know, when I'm going to work, I listen to it another 9 or 10 times. It's getting me in the right mind frame, I think, to do this show properly. But we might need to listen to the Monster Mash like 3 or 4 more times on this episode just to be sure.
I'm just going to eat a lot of pumpkin pie.
We can do that too. Jordan, I'm actually gonna change how we do things on this one. I'm gonna have you introduce our guest this time.
So we are joined by a special guest on this episode, someone I've known, at least on the internet, longer than Breno, longer than you, Joe, going back about probably 14 or 15 years, back to the Metal Realm message boards. And we are joined by someone who knows horror very well because that's his entire life. Joining us for this episode is the Horror Guru. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, and pleasure to be here.
Very excited to have you with us. For folks that don't know, you also like to talk about horror, although you make it your main thing rather than talking about I don't know how Sebastian Bach and the guy from Falling in Reverse are beefing, I guess, and calling that metal. You spend your time actually talking about horror on your channel on YouTube. Is that Blood Splattered Cinema is what it's called?
Yep, Blood Splattered Cinema. On there I have 2 shows. One is called Blood Splattered Vlogs, which is just a conversational format with me and my best friend talking about whatever horror movies just came out that week. And then we have the other show, Blood Splattered Cinema, which is what the channel is named after. And that show is way more of a fully produced videos in which I go over the history of the movie that I talk about. Usually it's like a classic splatter movie. And I talk about like the production that went into it. I talk about the history of it. I talk about the fan response. And I also kind of make fun of the movie out of love and give my critical thoughts on it as well. And that I don't produce as often as the vlogs because the vlogs are very easy to do because it's just me sitting down on a couch with my friend and talking about a movie. But they are like the main draw of the channel, the more complicated videos.
So how'd you get started doing the YouTube videos?
I got started doing the YouTube videos basically way back when I graduated from college. It was right in the middle of like the what do you call it? I guess economic downturn that
the
had
recession,
happened.
yeah.
Recession, that's the word I'm looking for. And unfortunately, going around trying to get a decent job after graduating was pretty shitty back then. So on the side, I had started my YouTube channel just for fun because there was a bunch of other people making similar types of content as I started off doing. And I liked all what they were doing. So I was like, okay, I could do that too, but talk about horror movies specifically. So I started the channel and it's now 10 years later and I'm still doing it. So it is what it is.
Well, I think that's a more productive use of your time than what a lot of my friends did during the recession, which is go to law school. Huge mistake. That's pretty cool, though. Like, I was looking around at your channel today. You really have been covering the latest things. So I'm like, oh, man, I just saw Barbarian the other day. You know, you're talking about it here. And I tried to watch some of the monsters the other day. You're on top of it. So it's kind of rad that... Do you try to stay on top of things like as soon as they come out, or do you let it rattle around in your brain a little bit before you tackle it?
I try to stay on top of them as soon as they come out, but sometimes just things don't work out. Like when I'm doing the Blood Splattered vlogs, they usually turn out better if it's me and my friend sitting down as opposed to just me talking about it. So I try to like schedule it so that he and I can sit down and talk about the movie. But sometimes he's not available until a week later, and so the video comes out a week later, and it just is what it is, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand completely. So wanted to ask you, like, you know, we're kind of we're in an embarrassment of riches right now. Is there any particular gems that you'd like to recommend to folks before we dive into our particular movie of the week?
Well, Barbarian is definitely one of the movies out right now that I would highly recommend. Another one I would highly recommend is Pearl. Pearl is kind of like I don't know if any of you are familiar with the movie Maniac, where you kind of follow like a serial killer and he goes around slashing people. It's kind of like that, but with a girl set in 1918.
Huh. I have to ask you this because I've been curious about Pearl. Do I need to see X first?
You don't need to, though it will enhance the experience.
Ah.
So you can see X first. I'd recommend it. But if you don't have the time, you can see Pearl and enjoy it just fine.
Being in a bit of a rush for time, I might just have to see Pearl first and then see the sequel later. Or what is it called when it's not the first one, but it's not the prequel? How do we do chronology here, Jordan?
The original?
The original. Let's go with that.
For doing so much, movie reviews, watching, and obviously specifically with horror, is there maybe a specific subgenre in horror or a particular thing that horror does that you personally try to avoid watching? Like maybe you're not into torture or I don't know, witch movies, something like that. Something that you don't care for.
I have a wide variety of tastes, so I guess the closest thing to come to that would have to be, I don't know if you've heard of the vomit gore sub. They're grotesque subgenre that's a lot like torture porn, but just with people vomiting all over themselves constantly.
Is there any story or reason for that, or is it just an hour and a half of just people spraying clam chowder on each other?
Most of the time there isn't much of a plot, but sometimes they'll have some bullshit. Oh, we're just performing a ritual and so we're going to vomit on this chick for the next hour and a half. And it's about as good as it sounds. Pretty awful.
This is completely foreign to me. Is there what is, I don't know, the E.T. of vomit gore? What's the big one?
The Citizen Kane of vomit gore.
Yeah.
That would probably be Slaughtered Vomit Dolls.
Oh, Jesus.
Of course, that one.
Yeah. I don't know. You ask a stupid question. I don't know, man. I'd never heard of any of this before, but Jordan, we've got a whole new thing to check out for next year, don't we?
This is a real question. Do people enjoy that beyond fetish or kink? Do people sit down and go, hell yeah, we're going to watch this?
Well, there are two types of people that enjoy vomit gore. The first type of person is kind of the person that I usually am, and that's the person who seeks out the most fucked up movies they can and just kind of takes it as a badge of honor that I've sat through it. I endured that movie. And the second type of person is, fetish people, people that fetish.
Are you ever affected by watching the most fucked up things that you could find? Is it ever too much and it's okay, I gotta watch My Little Pony for a while?
Absolutely. I had the experience when I first watched a Serbian film for the first time.
Oh yeah.
I just needed to kind of be alone and find a way to pick up my spirits after watching it. And the thing is, I actually enjoyed that movie, but I enjoyed it because of how awful it was.
The whole thing about it is it's an artistic statement about this is what our culture produces in terms of art, and it's awful and offensive to the senses or whatever. And I get that, but what you made out of this is I don't vibe with it, dude.
Not for everyone.
Definitely not.
Now, this is mostly a metal podcast, and you do like metal as well. I know, like I said, going back, we're on the same message boards, though we do have to give you a little bit of a hard time because you like one band that we can't quite figure out, and that's Ice Nine Kills.
Oh, man. Well, of course I love Ice Nine Kills. It is both metal music and horror stuff. So, I dig their songs and I dig the references to the horror movies, and it's just kind of my jam.
I guess what's been confusing to me about Ice Nine Kills specifically is like there's a ton of bands that are deeply indebted to horror, and kind of make it their whole shtick. And I guess I don't understand how Ice Nine Kills became like the band that everybody knows for that particular thing. And it seems like it happened overnight, Jordan, unless I missed something.
I think they've been around a while, but I mean, they lean into it even more than like death metal bands do, like even more than a Mortician, who half their song is just a clip from Dawn of the Dead or something like that. With Ice Nine Kills, it's like they get dressed up and they have the expensive, fancy looking green screen videos, and just people eat that up.
I think it's because their main guy's handsome. I think that's really been a boon for them versus all of the horrible looking rubes we know in metal bands.
When dealing with metal, we obviously have our like awful sub fans and people that just get too worked over just music and taking themselves too seriously. And I know that happens in the horror community as well. What do you think is worse? Horror film fans or music metal fans?
Metal fans by far. I love heavy metal music, but fans. Okay, let me. I make the same distinction with the horror community. There is a vast difference between metal fans at a concert and metal fans online. Metal fans online are some of the worst, most frustrating people you'll ever deal with. But at a concert, in person, they could be some of the coolest dudes or chicks. They could be like really fun and cool to hang around, and they're not going to sit there and judge you all day. But online, they will judge every single thing about you.
Suppose that is true. That has been our whole thing for a while there, Jordan, hasn't it?
It is, but I do see you on Twitter getting into it with all sorts of people, either trying to defend something or like telling people to back off and just let people enjoy things.
Absolutely. That's my main thing I do on social media is get into arguments with people, which is not good for my blood pressure, but hey, I haven't been able to stop myself from doing it yet.
I mean, that's what it's there for. It's a box where you get to engage with the rest of the world in whichever way you want to. And sometimes you get to fight with people. It's fun. And nobody's like, physically around you to fight you.
So we brought you on here for your expertise to review a horror movie, and you chose Hard Rock Nightmare. And I always have to catch myself because I want to say Rock and Roll Nightmare, which is a movie we've done before, and we've interviewed John Michael Thor on this show. So I always have to be careful. It's not that movie. It's this movie. So it's Hard Rock Nightmare. Why did you choose this movie?
It's very simple. I was like browsing Shudder one day, and I stumbled across that movie and realized, holy shit, it's an 80s Metasploitation movie I have never seen or heard of before. So I watched it, and around the time I had watched it, you had messaged me about doing the podcast, and I thought, maybe we can do this one because it is a metal podcast and it is a horror movie. It'd be the greatest way for us to cross over is to talk about one of those, and they probably have talked about the other more well-known Metasploitation films, so let's go with this one.
I mean, that's fair. I think we have, actually. This one was brand new to me. How about you, Jordan?
I knew the name, but I mean, we've done Rock and Roll Nightmare. I've seen Hard Rock Zombies. I've seen Black Roses. I know there's a couple more out there. So yeah, I hadn't seen this one. I just knew the name and didn't really know anything about it. So just kind of went in blind. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. And we can get into why it's both good and bad to do something like that.
Can we? I have a lot of criticisms for this movie, but I will say that the opening scene for this film is strong as fuck.
Oh, it's such a good 3 minutes.
It wastes no time. You don't hear any music, you don't see any names introduced or credits or anything like that. It's just straight to it in a black and white flashback sequence. it falls off after that, but that opening couple of minutes, I feel very strongly about it.
So do we want to get into reviewing the movie and talking about it, or do you want to talk about the people behind the movie first?
So I worry about that a little bit, Jordan. I don't want people to dump out of the podcast immediately, but we should probably let them know what they're in for, shouldn't we?
We should. Now, our good friend Harguru, do you know who is behind this movie?
Yes, I do.
Did you know before you had us watch it or after?
No clue. I mainly did my research on the movie like a couple days ago.
That's one of those things where you just watch a movie and you go, oh, Rosemary's Baby, that was a lot of fun. Who did it? Ah, shit. Yep. God damn it.
So I think the first thing that I noticed with this movie, I was looking at the the opening credits, and I'm like, Stephen Baio, surely he's related to Scott Baio. I'm like, oh yeah, it's his brother or whatever. He's a producer, has a bit part in this movie, and I'm messaging Jordan about that, and then he's like, dude, did you see who actually wrote and directed the movie? Well, who was it, Jordan?
Dominic Brascia, who was a writer, director, actor. People wouldn't really recognize his name all that much unless you Google it and see a couple of news stories that he was in later in his life. At first, he did an interview with the National Enquirer where he blamed Charlie Sheen for sexually assaulting Corey Haim. And not too long after that, Corey Haim's mother, Corey Haim passed away in 2010, Corey Haim's mother said, actually, Dominic Brascia was the one who assaulted her son, and went into a lot of detail and specificities about it. This caused Dominic to drop out of life for a while, getting off of social media, locking his Twitter account, only to resurface years later as a right-wing dirtbag AM radio host.
So I think that shortly after these accusations came out from Corey Haim's mom, I think he died 6 months later. I think that he had gotten into the radio game maybe 10 years prior to that on AM radio in I think first Sacramento and then Bozeman, Montana.
That hot media market, Bozeman, Montana.
Media jobs are hard to get, so you got to take it where you can get it, I guess. Very fucking strange story for what we all kind of thought was a very fluffy, hard rock exploitation 80s slasher.
Now, does that take away your enjoyment of a movie when you realize people behind it are, obviously very bad people?
It can, though I'm so used to it at this point, it definitely doesn't affect it as much as it used to when I was younger. But what makes this one even weirder, though, is if you actually look at the credits of this movie, there's a special thanks section. And in the special thanks section of the credits of this movie, he thanks both Corey Haim and Corey Feldman.
What the fuck, dude? Oh, man, that's fucking weird.
Yep.
Oh God, I don't really know what to do with this, man. It's not quite the same level as Jeepers Creepers or something like that. Because I thought that was a much better movie than this one. I don't know. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, Dominic Brascia's dead. Corey Haim's dead. What can you do about it now at this point? I guess if you want to watch something like this, he's not getting any money from it. So it's kind of like reading H.P. Lovecraft. It's you're not boosting him anymore. He's not going to get a new deal out of this because you bought a book or you watched this movie. So it is a snapshot in time. It is a B, borderline C horror movie that not a lot of people have seen. Does one or two things that are mildly interesting, and does have a little bit of heavy metal hard rock connection. So people can make the decision for themselves. It's on Shudder now.
It is, Shudder, or I think you can watch it on YouTube as well. It's worth noting. My wife sent me this interview that Corey Haim's mom did with, I think it was People. Actually, you sent it to me as well, Jordan. In which she continues on there saying that also Corey Feldman's a fucking scumbag who's just using the memory of my son to like make money. I'm like, damn, go off.
Ew.
So good for her for calling it like she sees it doubly. All right, we've gotten through the particularly weird and gross parts of this movie, and again, we haven't even touched the movie yet. Should we move into it?
Let's talk about the movie itself.
Okay, so I would like to, if I could, read the description that is on Shudder when you scroll over it. Is that all right?
Yeah.
The bad boys are hot. Jim and his band need a place to rehearse, and the isolated family farm was perfect. No neighbors, just the band and some girls. Rock and roll and party before the big concert tour. Unknown to the group, Jim is haunted by the memory of a demented grandfather who traumatized him as a child with stories of being a werewolf. The terrified child drove a stake through his grandfather's heart, and years of treatment have not erased the guilt or the lingering fear of his grandfather's revenge. 20 years later, the horror returns. On a full moon night, the revelry of the band is shattered as a two-legged wolf brings slaughter to their party. Jim draws close to insanity as his friends are butchered, and he must finally confront the terror from his past. Let the nightmare begin. Did I do good with that one? Was that okay?
Yeah, that was very smooth.
Thank you. This is pretty in depth here. This description that Shudder offers up here. You know, reading that, knowing nothing else about the story, is that something that you would be like, yeah, I got to watch this shit right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's like we said, there's the heavy metal hard rock connection. It does sound like a lot of other movies that came out around the same time. But, I have an affinity for 80s horror movies, and I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but if I saw that description for a movie that came out today, I might be less interested. But it being 80s kind of schlocky, I think that adds a lot more fun to it and more of an incentive to watch it.
I think that's fair. I mean, there's some of the phrasing here that I love writing. So things like getting ready for the big concert tour is a very funny phrase to me. Like, are you planning on taking your band on a big concert tour, Jordan?
No, not too many concert tours for me.
Okay. It says here that in the description, of course, the thing that sticks out the most here to me is the terrified child drove a stake through his grandfather's heart, which is pretty fucking. I mean, that's pretty heavy there.
And that's the first 3 minutes of the movie. Like you said, it starts off in black and white with this grandfather talking about drinking blood and werewolves, which was a little confusing because, like, they're talking about werewolves, but there's also vampires in there.
He straight up says, "I'm a vampire," and then he says, "I'm a werewolf." And I don't know who the actor was that played the grandfather, but he was by far the best at his job in this movie.
So do we think that was intentional to conflate vampires and werewolves, or was this just a line was flubbed and we went with it, or we wanted to have the stake through the heart scene and all we have is this werewolf mask to work with, so we're just going to mush them together?
That's a good question. What I assumed was like inept writing. That could just be a limitation, like, we can't afford Dracula shit.
So what do you think, Guru?
I honestly think they just didn't think too hard about it. They knew they wanted someone to have a stake in the heart, and they knew they wanted a werewolf later, so they decided to put both in there.
So this again, the opening scene wastes no time. You have this black and white sequence, this grandpa talking to a little boy and saying things like, "I'm going to kill your whole fucking family and drink their blood."
With the grandmother actually calling him an asshole.
She's like, "You're such an asshole." He's like, and he's terrifying this kid. He's like, "I'm a fucking Dracula. I'm a vampire. I'll fucking suck your blood. I'll kill you. I don't give a shit."
And he calls him a pussy.
He calls him a little pussy. And he's like, "All right, well, I'm going to go take a nap. You deal with that little shithead." And it's like, Damn, this guy sucks.
You know
And he gets what's coming to him.
Yeah, fucks around and finds out. You know, that's
this fucking 8-year-old Cub Scout, like his grandfather's sleeping in a hammock immediately after, like, just verbally abusing the shit out of him, like really, really emotionally abusive shit. He comes back. He has a stake that he just drives right through his heart. I don't know, man. Like, this movie takes some liberties with how people actually interact with each other, but this might have been the strangest one.
There was a lot of people don't act like this in real life situations throughout the movie, and we can get into it more because after we have this little flashback, we flash forward a number of years, and now everything's in color. And I assume this is in California. They don't ever establish it, do they?
I don't believe so, no.
You're on the West Coast. Does it look like California?
100%, especially when they're driving to the farm. It's 100% looks like the California 101.
All right. Well, we got these cool California rock and rollers then. I mean, this is what year was this movie made?
1988.
Okay. If you're like a rock and roller in California in 1988, that might be like put you on par with being maybe one of the coolest people on the planet at the time.
Glam metal was the big, not glam metal, hair metal was the big thing. So this was the time for it. And we get multiple mentions of David Lee Roth throughout this movie.
As you should. He's a cool dude.
So we have this band, the Bad Boys, which is just one of the worst names you could have for your rock band in a movie.
I kind of like it. I think it'd be funny if a band like did it ironically nowadays now, like with a Z at the end. I think that'd be pretty cool.
With like all leather jackets and pompadours and leaning on stuff and smoking.
I mean, like the Zoomers have brought back the dangly earrings, so I think it's appropriate for right now. I think it'd work out.
Would you see a band called the Bad Boys?
Oh fuck no, absolutely not. Would you?
I gotta see what the gimmick is, but I don't know.
The gimmick is that they wear Beatles wigs.
The gimmick is that you can't take them home to mom and dad, right?
Oh, there we go. I like that a lot.
They skip curfew. They spit on the sidewalk.
They smoke. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty tight. So we're in the present, or we're in 1988. Rather, I should say. And this band is, all hanging out in the house, going out to the garage to perform together. I've got a pretty good idea in my mind of what this hard rock band sounds like, but I'd like to go round table. Does anybody have a comparison that they would like to make? Guru, what does the Bad Boys sound like to you?
I hadn't really thought about what they sound like. I'm not sure what I would describe them as.
Jordan, do you have an idea?
80s soulless rock, like something that might be in the background of a John Hughes movie.
I feel like you're not giving John Hughes much credit for his soundtrack choices there. Now, for me, this sounded exactly like Bryan Adams, like the fucking Summer of '69 guy.
I could see that, especially when they have the ballad later on.
Yeah. Really,
it's not very hard rock.
It's not very hard rock. No, as a matter of fact, I might classify it as soft rock if I were being generous.
And the thing is, throughout like the movie, there is hard rock music. There is like borderline heavy metal with a band that I can't find anything about elsewhere. All I could find was a clip from this movie featuring their song. A band called L.A. Thundercats with a Z.
When was the show Thundercats on TV?
Mid 80s.
Okay, so it would have been contemporary with this then.
I think that's why they had the Z in it, so they wouldn't get sued.
But now there's a guy now that's Thundercat. There's too many Thundercats. We gotta cut this shit out.
He was the bassist for Suicidal Tendencies for a while, and now does his own thing.
Yeah, he's really, really doing pretty well as well. But at the same time, like everybody's got to stop calling himself Thundercat. It's done.
So the band plays in their garage, this soft rock tune, and I don't know about you guys, but when watching a band play in a movie or on a TV show, I try to see if they're actually playing. And there were moments where it was obviously not like hitting the right notes. Just there's cymbal sounds, but the drummer's not hitting the cymbal.
I do the same thing. With that song in particular, I was trying to figure out, like I had a notebook in front of me trying to figure out what the fucking rhyme scheme for this thing was, because it did not work in any conventional metric that I know of. Is rhyme when you feel like it, otherwise it's okay.
Rhyming too much isn't always good in songs.
I agree with you. At the same time, like if you do the thing where you don't rhyme all the time, but you do it sometimes, like it's supposed to follow some kind of conventional like A B C A thing. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen here.
They're the bad boys. They don't have to follow any rhyming schemes.
Yeah, fuck you, Wordsworth. So yeah, what was the song about there? They were singing the song Hard Rock Nightmare, right?
Yeah, they were singing the theme to the movie Hard Rock Nightmare.
Seems appropriate, I suppose.
But we never hear it again.
Never hear it again. They're playing in their garage. There's some babes over that are hanging with them, and they decide to open up the garage door as they're jamming out so the whole neighborhood can jam with them. And that's a big mistake, man. You can't do that when you're rocking too hard. What happens?
Because they live in a nice suburban neighborhood in California, and the police are called, and they tell them to pipe down, you crazy kids.
Yeah, that was where Scott Baio's brother comes into play. Briefly there.
Guru, you record a lot. Do you ever get complaints from neighbors, like you're being too loud? What's that screaming? Why is there blood dripping through the walls?
Once, when I was filming a bit that required me to scream really loud, yes, we did get some complaints for that. But overall, generally, we haven't had much problems with that.
Jordan, have you got paper thin walls at your place? People get mad at you when you're podcasting?
If they do, I never hear about it, but I definitely do have thin walls because I can sometimes hear my neighbors talking or sneezing or their phone ringing. And yes, they still have a landline because they're roughly 80 years old. So, if they complain, I just hear them in the hallway complaining about me. I wish I was kidding.
Well, I mean, like, same time, they're old. What are they going to do? Step to you? Please.
Die.
Okay, so we've performed our theme song. We've stabbed our grandfather in the chest and killed him. Where are we at here? This is kind of where the movie melts into a puddle for a while, so I actually need some help from you guys to recollect where we're going.
So at this point, because the police have been called and they tell them, stop making all this racket, they need to practice somewhere else. Now, I know the description said, like, for their concert tours, but I don't recall any concerts ever coming up, so they're just looking for a place to practice. And it turns out he's the guitarist, right, Jim?
No, Jim is the singer, I think.
I thought Charlie was the singer.
Charlie's the guitarist.
See, it's two funny-looking white guys with brown, short hair that wear leather jackets, so they blend together for me. But okay.
But Charlie's the ripped one. He's got he's got like a washboard abs and shit like that.
He's the hot one.
Yeah.
Got it. So Jim, who was the little kid who murdered his grandfather, he has an uncle, Uncle Gary, who apparently has a lot of money.
And talks with an interminable accent.
Uncle Gary's my favorite character of this whole movie, and he's only in 2 scenes.
He really does. I think he speaks like Judge Smales in Caddyshack.
It is that type of character, and I know he's like an old actor who has been in way more things than anyone else in this movie, so I appreciated him slumming it and hamming it up. He's with his assistant Dirk, who's a big dumb idiot, and it turns out that Jim's grandmother had left him the farm, the family farm / house where, he murdered his grandfather. I guess she wasn't so upset at him for that she still left the house to him, much to the chagrin of Uncle Gary, who, is trying to talk him out of it. Are you sure you're okay? Are you having nightmares anymore? And, they play it off. Yeah, he's okay. We'll take care of him. and they borrow Uncle Gary's Winnebago, and the band and all of their floozy girlfriends join with them, including Jim's girlfriend's friend Sally, who's very, very interested in Charlie.
Sally is one of the strangest characters I think I've ever seen in a movie, and that her motivations, her actions, her entire psychology vary from scene to scene, and they're all negative. Just wildly different from each other and negative.
It's like I said before, there are some people or some actions in this movie that, like, they don't act like any normal human being would, and that's mostly her character.
Let's go round table before we get too deep into it. Who was everyone's character? Who was everyone's favorite character? Guru, did you have a favorite character in this one?
I was quite fond of the drummer.
Same.
Because there is a scene in this movie where he is not twirling his drumstick, just to remind you that he's the drummer. But more importantly, there's a scene later on where he's in women's underwear and he's the only one who looks 100% comfortable doing it.
he's full on dong out. He's happy with it.
He's owning it.
No, I loved the drummer. He was a cool dude. I thought about, if I were 10 years younger, I might consider watching this movie, doing the game where you take a shot every time he twirls his drumsticks. Fortunately, I'm too old and I can't handle that anymore. But you younger kids listening to this, you should give that a try. Jordan, who was your favorite character?
Like I said, Uncle Gary is my favorite character,
yeah.
Despite only being in 2 scenes. I'm just wildly entertained by him. But as far as the band members go, I got to agree, drummer. He's kind of like a 80s Valley guy. He had that vibe to him, sort of like Bill and Ted almost. Kind of like the only character with any sort of unintentional depth to him. And I think my least favorite is the band has a sound guy, which is very funny. And he's the most detestable person, I think, other than Sally. Okay,
wait. I really could not keep track of... There were 3 blonde guys in the band. There was, let's see, there's the drummer who was blonde, but, he was cool. We love him. There's a version of him with a rounder face.
The bassist, Sammy.
The bassist. I fucking hated the bassist, man.
He was the really tall guy.
Okay. Wait, no, because I think that we're mixing it up. There's the tall guy, the tall blonde guy, and the shorter blonde guy with the rounder face. There's 2 blonde guys with rounder faces.
The shorter blonde guy is the sound engineer or whatever.
Okay. All right. I could not keep this shit straight. Yeah, that guy sucked a lot, but so did the other blonde guy.
Yeah, the names don't matter, especially in a movie like this.
Names when we who they are in the band.
Right. So
and they have the keyboardist too.
There's a keyboardist who's got the cool glasses and a dangly earring.
Lenses.
Wait, he didn't have lenses in him?
And they actually pointed out in the movie when the girl, the groupie chick, is trying to hit on him. He points out that he doesn't actually have lenses in the glasses. He just wears them to be cool.
Damn.
It's a look that he's going for.
So there's a lot of ladies with him as well. There's Sally. Sally is Jim's girlfriend, right?
Yes.
And there's Tina, who is there for reasons that we can't really determine. Not there with anybody in particular.
No, that's Tina's the girlfriend.
Shit, really?
Yeah, Sally's the weird one.
Okay.
Tina?
I think, right?
No, I think you got it backwards, man.
Shit.
Tina's the...
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tina's the blonde one that's awful. And Sally is Jim's girlfriend. And then there's the bassist's girlfriend?
Connie.
Okay. We're fucking killing it. We got all the characters here.
So they hit the road in their big Winnebago, which they put their own poster on, which I've never seen before. They put their own band poster on the side of the Winnebago, and they drive through the day and the night. And at this time, Tina is hitting on every member of the band to the point where she's making out with all of them, stopping, giving a little look to Charlie, and then continuing on with her making out. Now, I know the Zoomers like to use red flag as a term for things that they don't like. This is a red flag.
Oh, yeah. She was a walking red flag from the get-go.
She was toxic.
Instead of going up to Charlie and being like, "Hey, I like you. I want to be with the lead guitarist." Instead of doing anything like that, she tries to make him jealous by trying to get with everyone else, but then like gets mad at them when they're led on. It's like really weird.
It's like, you want to make out with me, but I want to ask you about Charlie. Tell me everything you know about him.
Really, just a character that all over the place, but wildly unpleasant in every scene that she's in. They're hitting the road. I believe it's Sally who's like, "Hey, by the way, everybody, something horrible happened to Jim here at the farm, so be sure to be nice to him."
Now that we're all trapped in this Winnebago and he's asleep 5 feet from us, you should know that he's out of his mind and murdered his grandfather, and we're going back to the place where he did it.
I feel like they should have said something earlier about that, you know? I don't know.
Dreaming of all of you as zombies. Hard rock zombies, you could say.
Ooh. Yeah, there's throughout the movie, there's like occasional dreams from him, but like not a lot. 2. It's kind of a weird thing to include for the movie, but like not make a big deal out of it or make it some sort of like story focal point. It's just, we have 3 minutes to kill. Let's put something scary in.
Yep. And they're trying to do this like whodunit scenario where you're not sure whether he is the one doing the killings or whether there's a random werewolf or whether or not it's his grandpa risen from the grave that's now killing people. But it's very obvious that they had no idea what they were doing when they made this.
I got a lot of Slumber Party Massacre 2 vibes with the dreaming that something bad is happening, but surprise, it's not. Like, and I'm sure there's more examples of it, but this was kind of like an 80s horror movie cliche or trope where it was like the fake out, this is all a dream, or this one little scene that's actually cool didn't really happen.
It's because everyone wanted to be Nightmare on Elm Street, but no one had the budget to be Nightmare on Elm Street. It's basically
or creativity.
That's exactly.
So I think that if we skip ahead a little bit, because we have large sections of this movie where nothing really happens. It's an hour and a half long, but I'd say that you could probably cut it down to 45 if you were a little bit more judicious with your editing. All right, let's get into our first kill of the movie. Guru, can you tell us what happens there?
So basically, the bassist is trying to hook up with Tina, the groupie chick, and Tina doesn't really want to hook up with him. So he tries to force her to first give him head, and she doesn't want to do that. So then he tries to force her to give him a hand job, but he gets her name wrong while moaning while she's doing it. So she storms off like, "You can't even remember my name." And then the werewolf shows up and slaps his head off, like bit it off,
like real easy, like whoosh.
It's probably the most bloodless decapitation I've ever seen in a horror movie.
Absolutely.
It was merciful though. I couldn't wait for that guy to get off my screen. I fucking hated him.
and at the same time, Jim is in his room with his girlfriend, and he gets a phone call, and it's a really awkward, obviously one-sided phone call where it's like, "Who is this? Grandpa? You're going to kill me? Oh, no." So that was weird.
Yep. It's especially given what happens later.
Very, very strange overall. We're hitting some awkward pacing. We're hitting some really strained dialogue. Tina lets everybody know what's going on, and everybody, of course, briefly freaks out. Pretty soon, they stop caring that their bassist got his head slapped off. Like almost immediately, they really stop caring. They're trying to figure out, like, oh, what should we do? And I believe at some point, Connie and who's the other guy? Sammy decide that they're going to look for help or some shit. What exactly are they going out to do?
Yeah, it's their friend and bandmate has been brutally, horribly murdered, and they're not too sad about it. I mean, they're freaked out, like, oh, that's really weird. What is happening? But they all stay at the farm. They try to make a phone call to police or to like the park ranger that's supposed to be nearby, and the phone doesn't work. But again, they're all still really calm about it. And Connie and Sammy agree to like go out and find help. I guess go find this park ranger, do something. And they get distracted pretty easily and just get lost and decided to get high.
They decide to get high and bone. It's an important distinction there because, you know, this is an 80s slasher. You can't do that. That's against the rules.
You have to do both. It's a requirement.
Exactly. Really, like, before they get high, after they get high, completely baffling choices of their dialogue. I believe that Connie says, "Are you sure you know that where we're going?" And he replies to her, "I wish you would stop complaining." Which is... Those two don't match. Those two lines don't match.
They don't.
And she says, "Boink under the moonlight," which, how has that not been used for like a song intro by a band?
Boink under the moonlight is a pretty good one. I like that a lot.
Like, boink has never been a common term for that unless it was like maybe in the 50s. And even then.
I believe that he also says, like, we're going to bone super hard.
Just the sexiest pillow talk going on.
I love it.
I am going to give it to you with my penis.
You know, Jordan, I know you don't. You've never smoked reefer. Guru, have you ever smoked pot?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I guess I've done a lot of drugs, but I've never been like I've never smoked pot, and I was like, what if I was Mary Ann and this was Gilligan's Island? It's like, where is this coming from?
See, I've been around people who are high, especially in like high school, and I think they would do stuff like that, but they were just stupid high schoolers.
That's fair. I don't know how old the kids in this movie are supposed to be because everybody looks alternative, like they could be 18 or 40. I can't tell. That was just the way 80s was, I guess.
Yeah, pretty. Always get the 30-year-olds to play your 18-year-olds.
That's how it is. So you know, Connie is baked and trying to decide if reality is more like Gilligan's Island or more like Lost in Space. When the two stone kids see what they think is a dog, which is very clearly a man in a furry costume, and they decide that they want to beckon the dog / man in the furry costume closer to them. As that happens, Connie is eviscerated, and it takes her boyfriend way too long to figure out what's going on as she's like covering him in gore and viscera.
But you say gore and viscera, but it's very light splatterings of blood to the point where he's like, "Oh, that tastes bad."
He has an initial reaction to the blood, but there's not enough blood for him to actually react to. But he does his performance anyway, and then later more blood gets on him. It's really awkward.
Yeah, he had to hit his mark, and there wasn't enough blood on him to say anything yet. But they ran through it, and again, acting like people who aren't real. No one would actually act like this because they're like, "Oh, it's such a nice doggy. Come here, dog." When it's clearly someone in a mask in a very, very bad furry costume, which they do actually explain later, which I kind of appreciated. But again, I think it was just a way around having zero budget.
I guess that's a good explanation for it then. No, I think we can chalk up their odd behavior to all of this as, you know, being under the influence of drugs. You can't trust a reefer, and they clearly were. So they had it coming. Back to the cabin. Is this where Jim is falling asleep and seeing visions?
I think so. I think this is around this time.
Let's call it that, because I think this was maybe one of the few bright spots of the movie where Jim in his dream sees his bandmates wearing lingerie, and they've decided that is going to be their gimmick. And their ladies are wearing their underwear instead, and this is deeply disturbing to him.
And at the same time, he has no shirt on, but he has his camo pants still on.
Well, duh, you're a rock and roller. You gotta have camo pants on.
And we've talked about how like the acting is bad in this movie, and the deliveries are bad, and the lines are awkward. In this like 3-4 minute dream sequence, everyone was awesome. They all like learned how to act and to have facial expressions.
Absolutely. One of the best parts of the movie.
What happened here where everybody got it together, where just everywhere else it was a big old cluster?
I think they were having fun.
I guess that'll do it.
It's fair. That's the most fun the movie has. It's probably the most budget they used getting that underwear. And yeah, all the band members are dressed up in their girlfriends and ladies' underwear. And they gather around a table, and Jim is all horrified, while everyone else just, again, has the best facial expressions. They're all delightfully over the top and having fun. And they're around a dinner table, and they pull off a platter, and it's the murdered band member's head, who then throws up pea soup onto Jim.
It's pea soup too.
That was my favorite visual effect in the entire movie, the severed head puking on Jim. I really appreciated that.
I mean, we say the severed head did it, but it's obvious that someone was just off screen throwing a can of Campbell's soup at him.
Yeah, I mean, they did not hire Tom Savini for this one.
It is not The Exorcist.
But still, very cheap fun there, I would say. And again, the high point of this movie, aside from our fucking sociopathic grandpa at the beginning of the movie.
I mean, if they had 3 or 4 more scenes of that in the movie, it would have been a much better movie.
I agree with you.
It's like they spent all their creativity in those couple of minutes.
Well, getting back to the present, I guess circa 1988, I kind of lost the plot here. What's going on?
Is this the scene with Charlie and Tina?
Sure.
So we finally find out why Tina is acting all weird and super interested in Charlie. It's because she's writing a story because her cousin has a magazine. And the story is about how the band is okay, but Charlie is the real star.
That's one of the David Lee Roth comparisons there. It says that he's a David Lee Roth-esque, sex rock god or whatever.
And Mick Jagger.
It's worth noting that David Lee Roth and Mick Jagger, I believe, are singers, and he is not.
Maybe that's why I was confused. But also, I mean, how old was Mick Jagger at this point? In his 50s?
Yeah, probably.
Late 50s? Yeah, you couldn't use someone like Bret Michaels, for example, who was popular at that moment.
I mean, yeah, I suppose there are any number of guys you could have grabbed from 88.
Lizzie Borden.
Everybody was horny for Lizzie Borden back in 88.
Weird about those comparisons she makes is that he has very short hair. And she's comparing them to all these rock stars that are famous for their long hair, especially at the time. And it's a weird comparison to make because he doesn't look like any of them.
Or act like them or dress like them.
Or perform the same instrument. These are minor quibbles. We shouldn't pile on too hard. So she's like, I've got friends in the industry. We can really break you or whatever. But we got a bone. So they bone, but Tina is not so happy about it. She kind of lays into him about it.
It turns out Charlie has a garbage dick.
He's got that garbage dick. Sorry.
A 1 second man.
So he busts too early. She doesn't like it. She's pretty unhappy with him. He says that he tried his best. She's like, "Oh, I'm glad I got your best."
She's pretty mean to him and then kicks him out of the room.
And Charlie is not so great either. He's like, "I bet you're a lesbian." She's like, "If all guys fucked like you did, I would be."
Just burns left and right.
And again, it's another one of those just she's unpleasant the entire movie, but it's another just sharp change to her character where she's just so direct and so mean to him. It's just shocking for how she has been previously in the movie. Nonsense character.
She just could have talked to him directly and gotten all this out of the way. She didn't even need to go on the trip for this.
Really, that's true. Weird things start happening here. Jordan, can you give me an idea of where we're at?
Doesn't the drummer and the keyboardist then go out looking for Connie and Sammy / going to the park ranger's house?
Yeah, and that's kind of a big waste of time. Not much happens with those guys. like they wander around for a while. Eventually, the keyboard player gets killed by the furry guy, and the guitarist Charlie there, he sees him and he grabs him and he goes, "Why?" And that's pretty good there, I guess. He's grabbing him while the keyboard player's eyes are clearly opening.
And then we have Jim trying to talk about how this is a werewolf. It's a werewolf. I'm not making this up. We have to make silver bullets.
Yeah, and he figures out the melting point of silver pretty quickly.
Yeah, he does.
I thought that was pretty impressive. I've never done that. Have you guys ever, melted silver?
I thought it was pretty clever the way he had made a mold out of clay, like just sticking the bullet in and then remolding a bullet out of it. It was oh man, that's pretty ingenious for a guy who is this crazy.
Who we find out was found innocent by reason of temporary insanity. Why, he never went to jail, and why he's just been seeing therapists since then. Now, I know California has some different mental health laws from the rest of the country. I know 5150 is a thing in California, right?
Because of Van Halen, yes.
Where you can be committed for 24 to 48 hours against your will.
That's actually something that happened in most states. That's a pretty common thing. The 5150 thing is the Van Halen thing. I think it was a code, an old law code for psychopath on the loose. We'll get into the Van Halen lore on another episode, though. Yeah, involuntary psych holds happen all the time, all over the place now.
Good to know, just in case.
Yep. Don't do that to me. Don't do that. So yeah, he the temporary insanity thing, that's only a thing that's ever happened in shitty movies, though. I don't think anybody's ever been found innocent due to temporary insanity. I don't think that actually exists.
Now, this is posed or presented as a werewolf movie. And I know, between the three of us, we've seen a lot of werewolf movies. When it's time to kill the werewolf, do you like the getting ready scenes, the making the silver bullets, getting strapped up with silver sticks, anything like that? Or is at this point, do we all know how things work? It's kind of like with zombie movies where people don't know, what are these things? How do we kill them? Or do you just want it to be yes, we all understand what a werewolf is. Let's go.
What do you think, Ira?
Honestly, it can be fun depending upon how you film it and how you do it. A good old getting your weapons together montage can be fun, or it could be boring as shit if you don't do anything interesting with it. So it depends. This movie's kind of in a weird place. It doesn't really do a montage. It just he just comes out and says that he needs to get silver bullets and starts melting shit.
I think they say it's a silver picture frame.
Yeah. Yeah. That was odd. I also appreciate that, Jem appears with his gun out of nowhere, and the ladies are like, you should probably quit waving that around, and proceeds to shoot a lamp.
He's like, good, it works.
I needed to know it works. Dude, you should have shot that outside then. What the fuck?
It's foolish. You're not being very safe with this gun. So yeah, I guess, like you said, took a picture frame, a silver picture frame, somehow melted it down and molded bullets out of it. What the fuck happens with Tina here?
I was going to ask you, because I wasn't sure, because she just ends up in a well at some point.
Yeah. Charlie is attacked by a werewolf, and she runs away and hides in a well, basically, is what ends up happening.
So she ends up in a well and covered in, I believe it's gasoline, right?
Yeah, we see a human hand pouring gasoline down into the well.
Yep.
Followed by a match, followed by, just one of the worst effects in the film, I think. Just no effort on this, well on fire. I was pretty disappointed by that one. Can you describe what it was here? Because I know they didn't have After Effects by then, but just imagine when somebody tosses something in Aqua Teen Hunger Force and it just explodes and catches on fire.
It's like someone put a JPEG of an explosion and just put the cursor on one of the corners and just pulled it out a little bit.
I'd say that's about right, yes.
Yep, sounds about right.
So this will take us, I believe, to near our final showdown. Jim finds a piece of fur on the ground, right?
Yes, fur that they find out is not real fur, but is like cloth, felt, and has a made in Hong Kong label underneath it.
Yeah, so at this point, the werewolf thing, the furry guy appears, and Jim pulls out the gun with the silver bullets and puts 2 in them, which we immediately realize, like, you went through a lot of effort to like smelt silver down into bullets for no good reason here. What did he find?
It is not really a werewolf, which anyone with eyes could have told you was the case, because it was a cheap Halloween mask of a werewolf and just a really bad costume.
Yeah, the guy had gloves that had steel fingers and razor fingertips or whatever. Probably not sharp enough to cut off a man's head that quickly, but I didn't write the movie, so don't come at me. Who was it that was behind the mask?
It was Dirk, the uncle's assistant guy.
Yeah, they were like, it's Dirk, and I said to my wife, who the fuck is Dirk?
Someone we saw for 30 seconds.
At the very beginning of the movie, I'm like, this whodunit, like, Guru, you said like it's posed as a whodunit, but like that's a bullshit whodunit.
Having it be a person makes no sense given the head just flying off and shit like that. It's so weird.
So weird. So, Dirk's on the ground, dead as fuck, and we have the real final showdown here, in which, like, I'm not going to go through the effort of it because it seems like a lot of work, but I do want to sample a couple of lines from this final showdown here. Jordan, can you tell us about it?
It turns out that the real villain of the movie isn't a werewolf or a vampire or even Dirk. This was all the plan of Uncle Gary. It turns out that beneath the farm is oil, and he wants to get at that oil. And it's established that Uncle Gary has money because he mentions like Dirk go wait in the limo, which he then has to explain is the long black car because Dirk's an idiot. So Uncle Gary has money, and rather than buying out Jim, who obviously doesn't have any money, or offering to take over the house for him, or even saying, you know what, there's oil, let's split the money, he decides to just murder a whole bunch of teenagers to get at it, and then to blame his his nephew, who has a previous murder under his belt, that he went insane and was talking about werewolves, and now all that oil is going to be mine.
Kind of a convoluted plan when you lay it out that way,
It's just, why not be like, hey, I will give you $10,000 so I can have the house because it means so much to me. If you want to, lie about it, or just be like, hey, good news, we're all millionaires.
What if I rented you a practice space in town?
Kind of like Scooby-Doo ass reveal, really. Like, I wouldn't have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. Like,
very much so. I think the thing that I most wanted to sample here was Uncle Gary's threatening them. He's got a revolver in his hand. He's like, I'm gonna kill you and whatever. And I believe it's at that point that Charlie punches him in the balls.
Well, Charlie's like begging for his life, like, please don't kill me, mister. And Uncle Gary's like, all right, I'll kill you last, kid.
Gets punched in the balls, to which he says, "Oh, my balls!"
See, Uncle Gary's the best.
Really fucking good. Really, really A+ stuff here. And then, fucking Jim plugs him again with the fucking silver bullets he didn't need to use in the first place.
Just completely bloodless shots, by the way. Like, if we thought there was zero blood before, there's like none now. And he does have the best line of the movie, where after he shoots him, he says, Fuck you, Uncle Gary.
Yep, that's it. That's the other one I wanted to clip. Fuck you, Uncle Gary. Like, that should definitely be on the next Mortician album. So yeah, Gary is, he's bleeding out there even though you don't see any blood. And he's like, gosh, I'm sorry, Uncle Gary. We'll get you to the hospital. You'll be okay. He's like, no, I'm dying. And Guru, what does he tell him there when he's like, I'm dying?
He's going to see him in hell and he's going to come back from the dead and get him. Like what is the deal with Jim's family here? The older men in his life are very, very cruel. Yep.
I don't know. So I believe that's it. I believe that is our hard rock nightmare, and I can tell you it was in fact a nightmare, if not hard rock. Closing thoughts on this film, Guru. What do you got?
My thoughts on this movie is that it is a bad, terrible, cheesy 80s metasploitation movie. But like a lot of those movies, and as terrible as they are, I kind of like it. I kind of like how bad it is. There's just something kind of charming about this shitty ass movie. And that's taking all of the problematic elements of it, which is like, yikes. And then you got like all the 80s ass homophobia going on throughout the entire movie. And that stuff's pretty yikesy too. But even with all that, like, I kind of like this stupid whodunit metasploitation slasher with the werewolf that's not a werewolf. I kind of dig.
When it comes to the bad movies, do you have a limit for that as well? Like, is Sharktopus versus Crocosaurus too bad for even you to enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. There are movies that just have like zero entertainment value, regardless of what they're trying to do. And movies with zero entertainment value, like, they're not fun in a cheesy way. They're not fun in a terrible way. They're just boring, just from start to finish. I can't really do those. And there's definitely like sci-fi original movies. If you've ever seen those, movies that are on that tier are usually like some of the worst movies to watch. But this has got some stuff that I kind of like. It's got terrible 80s rock music that's not hard enough, but but I like that shit. It's dumb. It's got a guy in a terrible werewolf costume running around lobbing people's heads off. It's terrible, but I like it. And everyone talks like they're in a 80s porno instead of a real movie, and that's entertaining too. So that's where I'm at with it.
Jordan, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think there's a couple of fun, entertaining moments in this movie. Like, fuck you, Uncle Gary is very funny to me. Just the character of Uncle Gary itself, funny to me. It didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, there's the whodunit, there's the werewolf part, there's sort of vampires, there's people acting like no human would act. Some of it's a little funny, intentional or otherwise. Watching this, I couldn't help but like pick out scenes or things about it that I recognize from other movies, like a band going in a van to a farm so that they can practice and record. That's Rock and Roll Nightmare. That's the whole basis for Rock and Roll Nightmare, except that's weird demon stuff that doesn't make sense, and this is weird werewolf slasher stuff that doesn't make sense, or the dream sequences that are like fun but don't really add to the story or do anything about it. So there's a lot of little pieces where I think this was kind of at the point where a lot of horror had already been done and redone to the point where you just get a schlocky, like I said, B, pretty much C horror movie that is fun in its lightness. It's what 80s horror movies just kind of, if you don't know, or if you've seen a lot of the ones that are already out there, this can kind of be a fun, like, Saturday night with friends, hidden gem, like throwing popcorn at the screen and just having a laugh at it type of movie.
I think that's fair. I would encourage folks, try to have a drink every time the drummer twirls his sticks. I think that'll make it an even better time for you. I think that if anybody out there would like to sample the line "Fuck you, Uncle Gary" for me, I would really appreciate it. I will send you a couple of bucks on Venmo as well. Thank you. Aside from that, I think we probably ought to call it on this one. Guru, if we want to see more of your content, where should we go?
Go to YouTube, look up Blood Splattered Cinema or The Horror Guru. Either way, you will find me. I'm easy to find that way.
Jordan, if we want to see more of you, where do we go?
You could follow me on Twitter and tell me how cute I am at 365 Days of Horror.
All right. And if you want to see more of me, send me money and I'll send you pics. All right.
Patreon.com/Toilet of Hell.
Oh, that too. That's also the thing that we do. Yeah, we do bonus shows over there. Next week, what do we got going on, dude?
Next week, we're going to have a longtime friend of the show have us watch a Russian horror movie from, the 60s?
Yeah, man. VIY. How do you pronounce that? You're the Russian guy.
Let's just go with V.
All right. There you go. It's on YouTube.
And Guru, what movies are you going to be doing in the next couple of weeks?
Probably Hellraiser is going to be the one that we're going to be doing soon when we finally get a chance to watch it in a couple days.
Are you excited for that?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. Like, every Hellraiser sequel has been terrible, and well, with the exception of Hellraiser 2. Hellraiser 2 is great.
I'm a big fan of the third one with the CD guy.
I hope he makes an appearance.
Love the third one, but for all the wrong reasons. But the trailer for this looks like a legit good Hellraiser movie for the first time in years, so I'm pretty excited for it.
There you go, folks. Be sure to follow up with Horror Guru to check out thoughts on that. And hey, I guess we'll see you next time. How about that, huh?
Rock on.
Bye.